All right, good morning. We're going to call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Vice Chair Saunier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Present.
We have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. With that, I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, March 28, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Saunier and seconded by our new member, Alderman Aldridge, that we approve the minutes from Tuesday, March 28, 2024. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Saunier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
Okay, great. We're going to move the agenda around to allot for some additional time needed for home is where the health is organization. So we're going to bring up the mayor's appointment to the Clean Energy Development Board, Mr. Nigel. If you want to come on up, Mr. Nigel Williams. I will, because someone reached out to me and asked what this board was, so I want to make sure I read the title and the description of this board. The Clean Energy Development Board provides access to financing for residential and commercial property, energy efficiency, and renewable energy projects through property assessed clean energy programs, otherwise known as PACE. With that, we will swear you in.
Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Nigel Williams, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are excited to be serving on the Clean Energy Development Board. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me today. Appreciate it. Good to meet all of you in person. My name is Nigel Williams. I am the business director at the program of physical therapy at Washington University School of Medicine here in town. I've lived in St. Louis for about 5 years now, and I've always had an interest in clean energy. I'm actually on the board for the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. Big outdoors guy, and just think it's an important part of our community, especially as the globe continues to get hotter. So excited for the opportunity to help the city of St. Louis.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Williams, first for your willingness to serve, and then also for your availability and accessibility to be here this morning. We'll start with questioning Alderman Cone. He's on Zoom. I'm not sure if he has any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions for the appointee in particular, but do as usual want to mention my gratitude for their willingness to serve, and certainly appreciate their consideration and their time this morning before the committee.
Absolutely, thank you. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. It sounds like your background would be, sounds great for this committee, and I appreciate the service you've already undertaken with Missouri Coalition for the Environment, and appreciate the comments you've made, and I agree. So I'm grateful to have you on that position. I look forward to supporting you today.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Just echoing the comments of my colleagues. Thank you for being willing to serve, and looking forward to supporting you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. I also just want to echo my colleagues. Appreciate your willingness to serve on this committee on behalf of the city of St. Louis. So thank you for your leadership.
Vice Chair Saunier. All right. Again, I want to echo the gratitude for your willingness to serve being here this morning. We know leading up to you coming here before us, we have access to your bio and the background of it, and then, of course, to what the board and the responsibilities of the board. So thank you again agree with Alderwoman Spicer that you are uniquely equipped to serve on this board, and we appreciate that. With that, I will accept a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Mr. Nigel Williams to the Clean Energy Development Board. It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and second by Alderman Browning. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sonier, Alderman Browning,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge,
Aye.
Vice Chair Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard, Vice Chair Sonier. We have 5 aye votes.
All right, thank you, and congratulations, and thank you again for continuing to serve.
Thank you all.
So we did, for those who are paying attention, we did have another appointee that was moved out of the position to be reappointed today. So we want to make sure that you know that, hey, maybe that position is open. So if you're paying attention and this is a board, sounds like something that you would want to volunteer to serve in and engage in, please look on the website. There's an easy link to apply for that board, as well as many other boards that there's appointments open for here in the city of St. Louis, and we appreciate anyone's enthusiasm to serve. With that, we will move to the committee discussion, item number 1. What I'm going to ask STL-TV to do is recess for a few minutes so that they can make sure their presentation everything is set, and then we'll come back. All right, we are excited to welcome Miss Sunny, the legendary, immeasurable impact that she has here and has continued to make here in the city of St. Louis. It's like almost she's just getting started, though, with some of the things that she's doing, and I thank you for your reach. We want to get you sworn in, and then we will have a presentation from Home is Where Our Health Is organization.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the HUDS Committee for hearing this presentation today, and for the team who came together to make this possible. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I am Sunny Hutton, she, her pronouns, co-founder and fund development manager at Homes for All St. Louis. We are the premier organization for tenant organized here in the city of St. Louis. We catalyze tenant associations that serve as an accountability mechanism for landlords to improve and maintain housing quality. And then underneath that umbrella, we advocate for a more renter-friendly policy environment. Home is where our health is. You can head to the next slide. We wanted to develop a comprehensive understanding of the code enforcement process for occupied property. And we also did an ecosystem scan in that process. We wanted to make sure that we had the resources available to support low-income and fixed-income residents, both renters and homeowners, in maintaining a healthy home. If you can go to the next slide for me. And then the next one. So we looked at what our problem was. Living in substandard housing, as we know, our research is nothing new, but this is the first time it's been analyzed on a hyper-local level here in the city of St. Louis. But living in substandard housing can affect your physical and mental health. And the way that the City of St. Louis Housing Code is currently set, it really sets a minimum standard of what a habitable or healthy home is. And usually renters are ill-equipped to handle the situation. And then also for our homeowners, a uniform code enforcement process could lead them to sell their home to speculators on the market, or those code violations continue to add up. So those are some of the things we wanted to address and avoid. We wanted to prevent displacement. We wanted to get our homes to compliance for a better, healthy environment. But we also wanted to make sure that our homeowners, especially our seniors, can stay in those homes. Next slide. So there was a few of us that came together for this whole developing a comprehensive understanding of our code enforcement process. So again, Homes for All St. Louis, our executive director is Christian Blackman, and then the Vacancy Collaborative. The Vacancy Collaborative had already done a similar process, but for vacant properties. And then we signed an MOU with the City of St. Louis's building division. Next slide. Now, it started off with just us three, but we knew in order to develop this comprehensive understanding, we were going to need multiple partners at the table. So in community, we actually stipend renters and homeowners to serve on the committee, North Point Neighborhood Association, and then our partners down at SLACO. On the government side, the Department of Health joined in, the City Councilor's office, the President of the Board of Aldermen's office, and so on and so forth. And then on the nonprofit and practitioner side, we wanted to make sure that whatever recommendations came out of this process could actually make sense in the field. So we brought on nonprofit developers as well, like DeSalle, which is on the south side of the city, and then North Newstead Association, that's on the north side of the city. Next slide. So this has been a year's process of us trying to develop this understanding. We started off with doing some process mapping. So as you can see here, we basically broke down the process for the buildings division and for the health department, from when that first call comes in to when that person ends up in court or when the violation is put on the door. We went through all of that. After we looked at that code enforcement process, we identified pain points. So where are there potential inefficiencies within the process that may continue to cause racial inequity? And then we looked at our peers in other cities like Baltimore, Syracuse, New York, and Memphis, and we actually took our buildings division, Department of Health, problem properties, we took them to the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy at the University of Memphis, and they got to learn. And that was, for them, the first time that they had been around each other to collaborate in such a way. We also did some best practices research to see what are other cities doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And then we got some data, thank you to the Department of Health. They gave us local City of St. Louis data and state health and housing quality data, and we analyzed that. You'll see from the maps that I'm going to show y'all, they look very familiar. It's like every other map you've ever seen for the City of St. Louis. A lot of the disparities are concentrated on the north side and in that southeast corner where it's like Dutchtown, Graveway Park, Patch neighborhood. So after we analyzed that data, we start generating solutions. What can we do to reduce the impacts of these pain points? Next slide. And as you see in front of you, we did the process mapping. And this PowerPoint presentation, you can actually click on those images, and you guys all have access to this. So you can go into those documents and see the best practices research, our ladder of enforcement tactics. So feel free to play around with that, right? Next slide. So here were some of our findings. Top interior housing code violations are for lead, mold, pests, rodents, and plumbing. And zip codes with the greater housing code violation and negative health outcomes are concentrated in majority Black neighborhoods, again, on the north side and in that southeast corner. And Black children in St. Louis are nearly 14 times more likely to experience negative health outcomes. If you can remember the Equity Indicators report, I remember around that time, that number was like 3 times more likely. That number keeps growing. So not only are they more likely to experience elevated blood level outcomes, on top of that, they're also most likely to have to go to the ER due to asthma triggers that have occurred due to indoor housing pollutants. In our ecosystem scan, we wanted to take a look at what resources are available to people to address housing quality issues. And for renters, there's little and nothing in between. There's only one organization that will provide home repair for renters, and that includes small things like locks, doors, anything security related. And then home repair services are unavailable in other languages, which makes it inaccessible to our immigrant or ESL residents. And if you can go to the second slide for me. I wanted to highlight some of our process mapping findings. Some of the major issues that we found is that it's a resident complaint-driven system. So the onus is put on the resident to report anything wrong with the home. So that means we, as a city, don't really have an idea of the state or conditions of our rental stock. And then it's seniority-based inspector assignments. I'm sure we've all kind of heard through the grapevine about this, but no, it's a real thing. If you've been there longer, you can choose where you want to be. And that kind of leaves our newer inspectors in areas that pose a greater difficulty, and then they don't have that knowledge coming in. And then there's little to no violation fees. So the Department of Health actually can't accept payments. So they have violation fees, but they are unable to process those payments. Look, that's an easy fix right there. And then inspectors are only inspecting between 9 to 5. And I know you're like, okay, what's wrong with that? Well, when it comes to the mating and breeding patterns of certain pests and rodents, you will only get evidence after 5. If you ever notice that when you go into somebody's house, if this is your experience, and you turn that light on and them roaches scatter, that's what I'm talking about. You have to be able to go in after 5. And currently we do have emergency inspectors, but they're only for fires. They're only called out for fires. We should expand that role and have them be called out for those rodents and pests housing code violation, especially because you can't accept tenant evidence. So if a tenant says, I got bed bugs, and here's my pill bottle with the bed bugs that I picked off of my bed, will you take it? They can't. So this will alleviate that problem. Inspectors should only be inspecting, but as of now, they're the ones researching the owners and trying to identify who they are, where they are, and that's a lot of responsibility for them. Luckily for us, you all and the Board of Aldermen have enacted the rental registry, so fingers crossed. And then one of the other ones is that there's no tenant communication or support. What you'll find, the only time a tenant is communicated with is when they call to say, hey, I'm 30 minutes away and I need to come, I need to have access to your property. And that's the inspector calling. After that, the tenant is unaware of any violations on their property unless they sunshine request the city and pay a fee. On top of that, the only other time they find out that something is wrong with their property is when there's a condemnation letter put on their door, which is too late. And even with that condemnation letter, they're not given any other financial support, whether from the city of St. Louis or the landlord, which is why it's going to be crucial that that impacted tenants fund is funded past the 100,000 mark at least $500K to ensure that residents have a safe place to be in the meantime while their property is being worked on. And then the last finding was there was no mold or cooling ordinance in the health or building codes. When a mold call would come in, it would ping pong back and forth from the health department to the buildings division, and because it wasn't in the codes, there was no way for those departments to test for mold or have the proper equipment to test for mold or training. So another thing that we saw was that the cooling ordinance was not present. And for us, St. Louis is hot, especially during the summertime. And we've had, if you look at the research, you'll see that we've had heat-related deaths because we've had consecutive days over 100 or 110 degrees in our city. And the people who are mostly affected by it happens to be folks north of 64. So we're seeing our Black seniors, our elders died to heat-related deaths that could have been prevented had we had a cooling ordinance. Next slide. I said this presentation needs to get some act right. There we go. This is just another map for my people who are visual learners. It shows on the left side where the majority of Black folks reside here in the city of St. Louis, and you'll see us north, and then you'll see a chunk of us on the south. And then you also see in those same areas where we are concentrated is where those CSB requests are concentrated, which is also where the housing code violations are concentrated and those negative health outcomes. We are being affected by chronic lower respiratory disease, asthma triggers, and on top of that, lead poisoning. Our health is in jeopardy as a Black people here in the city of St. Louis. Next slide. So these were a few of the solutions that we generated. And let me say, these solutions were not made in isolation, but they were made collectively by a group of civil servants, residents, and nonprofit institutions. So we were being mindful that these solutions were, again, robust, but also didn't have the negative impacts that we traditionally see when solutions are created in isolation. So some of the low-level administrative solutions for our buildings division and the Department of Health is just send a copy of the inspection notice to the tenants so that they are aware that there are active code violations on their home, on their property. And then to collaborate with community-based organizations. We know that our departments are working day to day and understaffed. And because of that, they don't really have enough time to go out in community actively and tell them about their work and tell them how to use the code enforcement process. So if you collaborate with a community-based organization that already has those pre-existing relationships, you're set, and they trust them already. Expand the role of emergency inspectors. I mentioned this earlier. Right now, they only come out for fires. They should come out for those pests and rodents as well. Policy solutions for my dear Board of Aldermen. Explicitly address mold in the building codes. We were able today, I know last minute, but today we were able to send a model mold ordinance from our partners at the WashU Environmental Clinic. I will say it is a very robust mold model ordinance. And then include anti-retaliation language in renter-related ordinances. In the mold ordinance that we sent today, it actually has anti-retaliation in it, because we actually felt like that the data we were seeing was like an under-reporting because folks are too afraid to call. Because calling means that they could potentially be out of a home because their landlord is upset about it. And it could mean that their rent increases because they made that call. So we want to prevent that and protect renters so we have an accurate understanding of of the conditions that our buildings are in. And then perform proactive, regular, and routine rental inspections. This is a no-brainer. This keeps us abreast on the condition of our housing stock. And then relocation assistance, which is that impacted tenants fund. So remember, when it comes across your desk, to vote yes. This relocation assistance will allow residents, especially those in the old 18th ward, who are gonna undergo inspections, that we're going to make sure that they have a place to go and that they're not financially burdened due to a condemnation. Next slide. So this is just me concluding the report. It was on the next slide. Can you go to the next one? So the conclusions of the report shows that health and housing quality are inextricably linked, and it's also linked to our city's racial history, and we have to acknowledge that. It shows that Black communities are disproportionately impacted by this problem in the city, and we have to continue to track that racial impact. I will tell you this, just because I gave this report and I sent a mold ordinance, our work doesn't stop here, and we won't leave you or our departments high and dry. Our plan is to continue to track our efforts. We're gonna move forward with implementation, and we're also, each year up into 2026, will ensure that our departments have the technical assistance that they need to implement, evaluate, and carry out these policies and recommendations. June 12th through the 14th, we will be attending the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy. And then the University of Memphis will also come here so that we can do a larger conference with all of our departments, all of the inspectors, so that we can carry this out. So it don't just end here, y'all. Can you go to that last slide? Yeah, that one right there. I wanted to also show you just kind of how our work connects with the other efforts that you've seen in the city or up here at this podium as well. So the Home Repair Network, they came out with a report with UMSL-SEAC that talked about the home repair needs for our seniors, specifically our seniors on the north side. And then the Green City Coalition and the Vacancy Collaborative. The Green City Coalition was more on vacant land, and the Vacancy Collaborative was more on vacant properties. So many of our efforts are intertwined, and we are making sure that we stay connected to them. We've identified what our challenges is. We've looked at the strategies through research, advocacy, and capacity building, And then our outcomes, really our outcomes are also dependent on your participation, your effort, and your vote as a yes on some of these bills. So that's all I wanted to say. Go to the next slide. Thank you for your time. You guys got questions for me?
All right. Girl, I just love you. I wanted to correct a couple of things. First of all, I'm always inspired by your translation, your passion for this work, your presentation, and I'm always so comfortable in learning from you. So I called you Sunny. That was inappropriate and out of order. I should have said Miss Hutton. I just feel like we're still sitting around the table and you're teaching about this work. And also, so the translation that I gave, this is not the name of the organization. This is the home is where our health is the title of the presentation.
Right. It's the title of the project altogether.
And so I definitely want to thank, of course, the work that you all do tirelessly and selflessly at Homes for All. And then here, all of the other ones, I took notes on the Vacancy Collab, of course, our building division, all the other community partners and community members and people that took the time out to get us here and be able to provide this data that we can make better decisions down here in our role to be able to support those departments in better practices. Girl, thank you. Thank you. So I know that I asked, and anytime there's anything in HUD's committee, just for the record, I will always accept public comment. I know the website didn't reflect that, but if there is anybody here that will speak about this on this work, please feel free to sign up or raise your hand in the chat. And with that, I'll start on the questioning from the committee with Alderman Cone.
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you, Ms. Hutton. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. That was a very informative presentation, and I appreciate the work that's being done and the acknowledgement of all of the different overlaps in the department, sections between health and outcomes in general. I received your model mold ordinance. We'll definitely keep working on that. Do have commitment to the building division and to work on that ordinance, and that we're going to be continuing to make sure can get out and be effective and keep moving. So yeah, I appreciate that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the committee of homeowners and residents that you said gave input, and just if anything came out from them in particular that you.
Yeah, I think it was such a collaborative process. When we first started, our starting point was to identify what our values were. So everyone wanted equity to be embedded in our process, harm reduction. So it's to say one thing came from RUM residents escapes me, but I could tell you that it was an ongoing collaborative process and everyone had an equal say. We even decided on how we make decisions. Our decisions were based on consensus, and when we had ad hoc committees come from the overall coalition, we gave them the power to make decisions on behalf of us. So it's hard to say that one thing came from RUM resident. They were fully a part of the process.
Yeah, I appreciate the information, and I look forward to reading more, and yeah, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Sunny. It's wonderful to see you. Wonderful to hear your presentation. I think it was as clear as it could be, and I look forward to working on several of these issues, as well as, I'm excited about some of the things we've recently passed to address some of these issues. You mentioned the rental registry. Was really excited to support that and can't wait to see the effect it can have. The Impacted Tenants Fund, which was a lot of it is targeted towards those areas of the city that weren't under the Housing Conservation District, specifically the 18th Ward, where there weren't regular inspections, and so we saw some, and we still see some pretty horrific housing conditions.
Yes.
the safe temperatures and rentals bill, which I understand we're going to make some improvements on as well, and just following that model language. So I've watched Homes for All do good work for the last several years, and you all just keep getting better and more involved, and really just reaching out to our community and talking to the people who are affected most. So just want to say thank you for that. And also just want to highlight that all of this depends on our building and their ability to inspect, to get out there and respond to tenant issues, and including, after dark if need be. I appreciate you highlighting that as well. So I don't have any questions because your presentation really was very thorough. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. How you doing, Ms. Sunny? Also, I just want to echo everything that my committee members kind of already stated. I want to thank you, and I know your team, Christian Blackman, and everybody at Homes for All for the amazing work that you guys are doing and how you're being very intentional about making sure that renters and communities part of it, as well as elected officials and non-for-profits. We, like Alderman Browning said, we passed a lot of legislation. I think some of that will actually have an opportunity to grow from. The Impacted Tenant Fund, I definitely agree we need to put some more money in that, and I serve on budget, so we'll be making some moves to try to do that because it is critical. And I look forward to, just as a committee and at the Board of Aldermen, this last session, we really took the Year of the Renter serious. But as we know with legislation, sometimes, you start a place and you only can continue to grow from it. So I know this committee and many members of the Board of Aldermen does take renters' rights serious, and look forward to working with my colleagues and working with you and Homes for All to figure out what we can do to only expand the scope of work that was started last session. And I think we got a 1 o'clock, so I'll be on that 1 o'clock Zoom a little later with you. So glad to be able to be seeing you twice in one day. So thank you.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate it. The efforts, you guys have already put in the effort, and it shows. And so I look forward to our continued work together.
All right. With that, did we have anyone signed up to speak or anyone online? Okay. Can you close out and then also let us as well as people listening know how they can follow you and get engaged in the work if they?
Yes, so if you want a copy of the brief, you can go to www.homeishealth.org. That's homeishealth.org. And if you yourself, you're a renter, or you know other renters that need support with understanding their lease, walking through the code enforcement process, or even someone who may be facing eviction, you can call our 24-hour renter hotline at 314-252-8356. That's 252-8356. And if you want to just bug us via email, that's info@homesforallstl.org.
Written out for the number 4.
That's a good question. It's FOR, yeah. info@homesforallstl.org.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, sis.
Thank y'all.
Have a blessed day. We will move on to any written testimony,
We have none.
announcements. Anyone have any announcements, board members? I do want to make sure I didn't note it, but I did hear from Vice Chair Sanye, so I didn't skip over her for anybody watching. She had to excuse herself for the last part. All right, so we were all present, no excused members. I'll accept the motion to adjourn. It was moved by Alderwoman Slicer, seconded by Alderman Aldridge, and previous roll was called. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Have a blessed day.